Welcome into Rover Sports. How you guys doing tonight? Hope everybody is doing all right tonight and this evening. And I wanted to talk about Jameis Winston in this video tonight. So, Jameis Winston, currently a free agent in the NFL. And I think that Jameis is a free agent for several reasons. And I'm going to talk about where Jameis Winston would be a good fit. I'm going to do a video on everything about Jameis Winston during this video content. So, Jameis Winston, if we're going to look at his statistics over the years, Jameis Winston has thrown a lot of interceptions during his time, but he's also played under two head coaches. He's played under Dirk Cutter, and he also has played under Bruce Arians in Tampa, Florida. So, Jameis, we look at his career. He has 121 TD passes, which is very, very good. He's thrown for really an incredible amount of yardage over his career. He's thrown for 19,000 yards, and he's eclipsed 4,000 yards in 3 of the 5 seasons. So, Winston, his completion percentage is pretty good. So a lot of people might think, well, why is Winston not getting a job? Why is he not getting this offering? It's because his career record isn't that good. He's never made the playoffs in the 5 years. Even Marcus Mariota has gotten to a playoff and has won a playoff game. But you look at Jameis Winston, he's been around an awful defensive unit. Mike Smith was not a great defensive coordinator, to put it mildly. He didn't have a lot of talent around him on defense. They've been breaking in a new staff of players, and now they've just spent money on developing the new group of players. Jameis Winston, big personality, but I think that Jameis Winston is a guy that I think you can work with a guy like Winston. In the past, he's definitely been a guy that's had to learn from his mistakes stemming from Florida State and then the Uber incident right after the draft. But other than 2016 until now, he's kept a very clean profile. He's been an upstanding citizen and player in the NFL since 2016. Guy has arm talent. He can make throws across the field. He can put it in the tight windows, and he is clutch. He's a national champion. He won the Heisman, I believe, Jameis Winston. So the guy is an absolute winner. That's why he was the number 1 pick in the draft. He only played 2 years at Florida State. I think that at Florida State, he only lost one game, and that one game was to Marcus Mariota and Oregon, who ended up going behind him in the draft. One thing about Jameis Winston that is a big negative in terms of him and this modern NFL market is Jameis Winston is very, very immobile. He is not a great athlete. He is really terrible at getting out of trouble. He's tough to bring down, but he's not fleet of foot whatsoever, and that's what a lot of guys are looking for in a quarterback. Jameis Winston, and you look at this with Chad Kelly. I mean, we talked about the off-the-field stuff. Chad Kelly had a couple of recent off-the-field issues, and he's been banned from the NFL, and I think Chad Kelly is just as good as Winston, but I think Chad Kelly's also just as good as Jared Goff. I think that I would take Chad Kelly, and if I had to win a ball game, I would take maybe Chad Kelly over a guy even like in Mitchell Trubisky or over Sam Darnold and so forth. But about Jameis Winston, I think Jameis Winston can win you games. I think he can make big level throws. I think he's a starting quarterback. Now, how would Jameis be as a backup quarterback? I think that Jameis is a backup quarterback. Then you have to consider a lot of things because Jameis has never been a backup quarterback. He might struggle in that capacity. There was issues with him and Ryan Fitzpatrick. He was very, very poor in that role. If you remember, Winston would come in, he would have some terrible games. Like against Cincinnati, he'd have some awful outings. Bruce Arians really scripted a lot of great plans for Jameis Winston. He's never had an unbelievable, terrific season like a Cam Newton. So that's the reason why a lot of people want to move on and not really take on Winston. But I like Winston. I think that he gives you a lot of upside. I think he can lead a team well. His teammates really like the guy. And I think that Jameis Winston for like a year or two for a win-now team would be perfect. But that's the thing now is that a lot of teams like the Chargers, I think that the Chargers would be wise to select Justin Herbert in the draft. I think that the Chargers should do that. I think that going young is a good idea. You look at Winston, he's not going to get any faster. But in terms of Jameis starting at quarterback, I think you could do a lot worse. I think he's like a top 17 quarterback in the NFL if I had to put down a label on Winston. If I had to say something about Jameis, I would probably say Jameis is like a top 17 quarterback in the league. I still think the guy has plenty of ability, even more than like a Cam Newton per se. It's just a very tough fit. I mean, Jameis might have to wait until somebody gets injured. He might have to battle somebody that is not playing well. But Jameis is a quarterback that could certainly win you games. But is he going to be a guy like a Chase Daniel that's going to want to be in a backup role, or like a Jeff Driscoll or a Colt McCoy? There's a reason why these quarterbacks have been taken up quickly, because the Giants are not going to bring in Winston. He's too big of a profile for a Daniel Jones. A lot of people don't want to fracture the starting quarterback. So where are their starting gigs available? Where is the coach comfortable with Winston, comfortable with turnovers, comfortable with the past completely? Where is that necessarily? And comfortable in the fact that Jameis is also immobile. You look at a Nick Foles, similar, good arm strength, right, but completely immobile. Jameis Winston, big personality, E to W. There's a lot of reasons why Winston isn't signed. There's a lot of reasons why Jameis is a pretty good player. He's an interesting player. I think that he's good in a smaller market, a team that is trying to win games. You look around the league, and I'm trying to think of places where Winston would be good. Actually, if the Cowboys didn't want to sign Prescott, I would take actually Winston for $15 million less than Dak Prescott. There's a chance that Dwayne Haskins does not work out in Washington. Maybe Winston can go there, but again, Haskins is probably going to get another chance. I look at Detroit, and I think Detroit would be a wonderful place for Winston to compete with a Matthew Stafford, a guy who's never won a playoff game before. You look at a guy in Matt Ryan, could have won a Super Bowl, didn't. Jameis is clutcher than Matt Ryan. Jameis Winston wins a lot of games. Matt Ryan doesn't. You look at Bridgewater or Jameis. Jameis can maybe compete there in Carolina, but he doesn't have a relationship with the coaching staff. Pittsburgh, I think Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin, that's a great fit for Jameis Winston. So there are really good places for Winston. I think Winston would be great behind Ben, great in the culture of Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin there. And again, Pittsburgh has a stable locker room of older guys like the Pounceys, guys that can really help Winston achieve. And maybe even LA with Sean McVay would be interesting with Blake Bortles in that locker room setting. Jacksonville, another setting, maybe some competition there. If Nick Foles leaves, you bring in another quarterback like Jameis. There's a lot of places that are actually a little bit uncertain at the quarterback position, especially, for maybe year after this. Indy, what's going to happen in a year with Indianapolis? So that's all things to consider with Jameis as we go forward with this process. But wanted to make a video. I think that Pittsburgh is a great option for Jameis Winston. I think that actually Tennessee is not a bad option, but if I were going to list it, I'd say Pittsburgh's really good. Jacksonville is very close to home for Jameis. He should look there. Maybe Washington. They have Kyle Allen there and Haskins. So there's a lot of differing possibilities with Jameis Winston. We'll see and we'll monitor. Leave your reaction below. Why you think Jameis isn't signed. Where do you think that Jameis